Hi, welcome to Detours, Understanding Acquired Brain Injury. And we're going to be starting. Hi, welcome to Detours, Understanding Acquired Brain Injury. And with us, we have Debbie, who will be doing swimming, aquatic activities, exercise, things like that with her. She's been a survivor for longer than I have, and she's also our aquatics and exercise basically our instructor, and we'll be dealing with water type activities that you can do both in the water and on land. And so we'll be starting out with some basic kind of things. Well, yes, unless your house is flooded. But Debbie will be going over a lot of different kinds of like basic moves and maybe like showing us, having us repeat some basic exercises that you can do to stretch and help develop your essential skills for water type activities, aquatherapy, hydrotherapy, things like that. And so I'm just going to hand over to Debbie and we'll let her get started. Hi, Debbie, first of all.
Hi. Okay, recently I have been referred for therapy 30 years after the fact for my quad muscles to help support my knees. Let me skip this back so I can. I've got my kitchen chair here. And what they have me doing is a lot of sit to stands without using hands, because that works on my quads. And we also do that a lot in the water. So basically anything you can do on land, do in the water. And one of the things, and I'm gonna make sure I remember because I forgot it last time, I get water shoes because I've got very flat feet, and jumping and bouncing on the pool concrete hurts my arches and toes. And these I got at Walmart. They're Athletic Works, and they've got a really good sole, a thick sole, so that I don't feel the pounding of the ground. A lot of the water socks you'll see out there are just that, they're water socks. But these actually have a sole to them.
Can we maybe do some basic exercises to get, like some things you'd recommend to start with?
Okay, we start our exercise sessions in the class with a warm-up, and we'll do jumping jacks, and we'll either go halfway up or all the way out of the water, but that tends to splash my neighbors when everyone's flinging their arms around. But we'll jump to the A-frame and back, because you can do it in the water, because I can't slam. It takes me like 30 seconds to go, and that's about it.
Right.
2-inch, but hey, 30 years ago I couldn't do a 2-inch hop, so I'm doing good. But we'll walk in the water and swing our arms, pushing the water more as resistance. And to work shoulders, we'll do across the chest and push your shoulder blades back.
So maybe we could do a few of these here, like just have people stretch with us and do, because that's one of the things I'm hoping we can do is like just start something regular so people can practice here on land, with us to get a little stretches in, if that's all right.
Yeah, go in, be right back. Okay, I'll be right back. I'll be in my kitchen. These are an 8 ounce, so they're a small can. But just to give some resistance, you can use heavier weights, juice bottles, water bottles. But we curl, and we do a lot of the back to work on the triceps and the back of the arm muscle. I'm sorry, I'm not a loss.
That's okay. So we'll maybe just like write down something like 5 times and just do it literally,
Yeah.
and as in if you're, like kind of leading a
I'm
group. What?
accountable. If I'm going to do a by myself exercise routine,
Mhm.
I'll have a list of the exercises I intend to do and check every day I do them and just
Mhm.
try to get one sheet so I can remember because I do suffer very bad short-term memory.
That's something I understand. Are there specific things that you find are better exercises, things to do that you find work, um, like on dry versus in the water?
Well, as many head injury victims realize, I was left side head injury, and you can notice it because my right arm doesn't go as high.
Hmm.
And it used to only go like this, but I've got it worked up, and all what I can do to help that is I use the other hand and like a therapy band
Right.
because this is forcing my arm all the way up because I pull up with the other one and it's getting the same exercise.
Is there anything you would recommend? Where would I get one of those if I were looking for a band like that?
I I don't know if you can get these at Walmart. I almost think you probably could,
Mhm.
but I know I live block down the street from our hospital, and across the street from the hospital, in a strip shopping center, is a medical supply store.
Aha. Okay.
I things for my walker, my trekking poles. They sell these, but these would be in the sports section of your Walmart, probably.
Okay. So that, or like, that's a good point, from like a medical supply store or a pharmacy or maybe like the hospital could recommend it or online, I'm sure.
Yeah. One other thing, I'm sorry, I'm trying to. One other thing I do to strengthen my quad muscles. I put it around my legs, and my therapist has me sidestep to keep in control. And
Hmm.
the back of my thighs provides
Right. Okay. Hmm.
squats in the water. I'm like, I'm weird because I figure if I don't feel it hurting or working me, it's not working. But I guess it does because she has us do our squats in the water. And I found I'm bad at doing squats on land because I'm afraid I'm gonna fall.
Right.
And like the physical therapy lady has me do sit stands, but she doesn't want me touching the chair. She wants me to trust that it's there, but stand up right before I go down. So I what I do is I stand close enough that I can feel the back of the chair on my thighs
Okay.
and then feel it. And that strengthens your core, your quads. And you'll hear my chair scoot back. It's like, nope, don't sit down. You can't sit down. Stand back up.
Oh, okay. Are there like specific exercises you might recommend for people who are in wheelchairs or something like that?
Wheelchairs. Let me move this and I'll come sit down. Sorry. When I was in therapy after the car accident, we did a circle group therapy. And
Hmm.
it rehab for back then, if you're in a rehab center, it's basically an old folks home.
Right.
I was the only one under the age of 60 there. But we'd sit in a circle, and you can do it by yourself as well, with the old childhood game toss across,
Hmm.
the trophy bag game. And we'd go around the circle, each throw in a bean bag, and half the circle got the first when they turned over, and the other half got the other half. And it's flexion and extension,
Right.
and we all around the circle, and that's same thing involving the legs. But
Hmm.
I mean, anything, just standing up, walking in place during a commercial. Don't sit down all the time. And I have a hard time because I will.
Mhm.
That's why I've gotten addicted to the exercise classes at the gym. Because they're like my school. I have to do it. It's
Right.
on my calendar. And if it's on my calendar, it's solid. I've got to do it.
Right. And that's a good thing too. And it's also important to remember, and I think keeping this in mind is that like our cognitive deficits get in the way too. We'll forget to do stuff, or we won't think about this, or
Yeah.
um
I've got it where I'll remember to check my calendar. I may not remember what's on my calendar from day to day,
mm,
but calendar, it's good.
right.
So I
And
try
that's a
calendar more.
problem I have is remembering to check it, so I forget to remember, you know, and which is literally what they say about like frontal lobe injuries is we forget to remember, frontal amnesia they call it. It's not that we don't. It's not that we forget all the time. Sometimes it is we forget that we remembered something, and so we have to be cued to do it. And it's like, oh, okay, you know,
And like generations today, we joke about it. You've got your phone stuck up your butt. You know, everyone can't let go of their phones. Their
right?
phones are all
No, no,
so.
I get it.
And I've just gotten in a habit of checking it semi regularly. First thing I check. After I get up, I take my pills. I go sit down. It's my slow waking period. I don't do coffee, so I check my phone. My my coffee.
Yeah, I wouldn't work without coffee. I don't function without it. But I'm a nurse, so yeah. No coffee, no mark. It's an essential, and 2 or 3 cups sometimes. It used to be a lot more than that, but yeah.
I
So
used to substitute soda pop for coffee, but I think that was more mental. Okay, I need my caffeine. So I was mentally addicted to grabbing a soda every morning. And
I try to avoid soda.
I'm watching that because of these big thighs here, belly.
Um, but it's like a lot of exercise can help stimulate your brain, can engage and get you rolling. Um, but I've been drinking coffee since I was 5 years old. So um,
Most people are teenagers or younger. I love the smell of it, can't stand the taste.
yeah, I love the smell of it and like the taste. But I only use the smallest amount of cream, like just like one little thing, one little creamer or just a small amount. It's almost black, and no sugar. Like, and sometimes black is good too. Bold, dark, very little addition to it.
So
Yeah,
basically, clear in the coffee world.
huh?
Basically, you're drinking Everclear,
Yeah, I guess that'd be a way of putting it. Yeah,
the strongest
intense. Yeah, exactly. Intense. Yeah. Taking it straight. Yeah.
stuff.
Well, it's like it also helps me like to focus and stuff. And with work, back when I worked emergency and trauma, you needed to be able to stay focused for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours if you were assisting in surgery or anything like that. Um, because you'd have to stand for hours on end. And that's another thing where exercise and what we're talking about here is important for your stamina.
Yeah.
Because swimming is good for both aerobic and anaerobic type exercises.
If you stay sitting down too long, you're gonna live there.
Right.
Make yourself get up and move.
And that's key. It also, I think, is good for like sensory input too. A lot of people after brain injury have trouble like dealing with, like stuff that touches their skin and everything else. And I think like water helps you relearn like sensory processing. And if you have problems with it, like being less covered, more view, the water helps like reteach your brain to deal with sensory input and stuff. And temperature regulation too. A lot of us have trouble regulating our body temperature after brain injury. And so the water helps maintain like a more even temperature distribution as well.
I swim up at the public hospital's pool, and
Hmm.
they've got a sized pool, and they've got probably a 15-foot by 8-foot warm water therapy jets pool.
That's nice.
The one I do aerobic, or I do arthritis therapy, and we do a lot of the touching the fingers, rolling the wrist, shrugging shoulders,
And
back
those are good things. And I'm hoping we can then with you come up with like a plan for like going through a sequence of those kind of exercises with people. Design a program for like, with Debbie, at doing exercises with Debbie like this, like what we're talking about. You and I do exactly what we're doing right now, but do like 5 shoulder rolls, head rolls, and do something like that. You know what I mean?
yeah. But my reasoning for the water was in the very beginning. I was trapped in a wheelchair.
Right.
Had no movement on my right side, which has come miraculously, and skill based, knowing where to doing.
Well, some of the people who watch our channel are like that right now. And so like coming up with stuff like this to help them.
But in the water, chest deep water, if they're comfortable in the water, or if they
Mhm.
were beforehand,
Right.
I feel comfortable, and I wanted to get back to where I was.
Mhm.
I and one great thing is I felt safe in the water, because
Right.
if I just dead man's floating and get my footing
Right.
back, and
Exactly. And you don't fall traditionally in the
yeah,
water. So you can, so that's why I want us to be doing this regularly is to help people get practice, and to do some simple things, sitting, standing, and things they can do in the water as well as on land. Simple stuff. And so
yeah,
that's what I want us to be doing, like maybe once a week or once every other week or something like that, like this, and doing stuff like that. If you're all right with that, that's what.
have everyone just come join us. Turn on your phone, put it in your pocket,
Right.
turn
And
on the
then, well,
clock.
we'll store these, and it's like have them available for people who can't watch at the moment, but like we'll be able to go on to our website and, watch it there.
I did try to ask one of my water teachers, because I saw her looking back at. We have a radio playing when we jam out to music. It
Mhm.
helps. Looking at her notes on the radio stand. I
Right.
said, "Do you have the exercises written down? Could you send those to me?"
Right.
She's a death in her family, but I'll
Mhm.
get back,
Okay.
go over the hump, and she'll
Okay.
send me.
And that's what we can do is like to help people who are watching stuff like that and to exercise, like, and because they'll be able to use it either in the water and watch like on their tablet or like laptop sitting up on something if they want to, or do this sitting like we're doing right now, like stretches or like stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that kind of thing. There are also things you can do, with, as you point out, very smartly so, like soup cans if you're lifting for weights, or like, and that's a really good idea. Plus the bands and other things.
A belt
Good
set
point.
on, and just stretch, push against the circle of the belt.
Hmm.
You may
And
are, but that resistance helps build muscles.
again, a chair against the wall, as you have, it's like make sure it's safe because you want to make sure it's, comfortable to sit. Maybe have a spotter with you if you are unstable or if you're in your wheelchair. Work from that. Um, there are a lot of different kinds of.
I'm with you.
Yep.
And
All right.
that I've been seeing and kind of practicing is a wall sit, and I've got to watch out.
Oh, okay.
But with your back up against the wall,
Hmm.
try to get down in a seated position, and
Yeah.
because but so you're kind of sitting against the wall.
Right.
Hold that. Might not be good to do it in socks because I feel like my socks are going to shoot out under me.
Yeah, and you also want to be careful that you don't not against a rough surface. If
Yeah,
you're gonna do it, make sure you're not pushed up against, say, concrete or
yeah,
in the basement and in a place where you have access to a phone in case, heaven forbid, you should have to call, 911 or call a spouse or a friend or, somebody. And you're when I ran EMS, we got plenty of people who were like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed." It's like, don't worry about it. What's more embarrassing, is if they find you dead down there, 3 weeks later because you didn't plan ahead. So it's like
yeah,
always make sure you've got. That's much more embarrassing because then you end up in the news, and there's they end up giggling about some like, oh, remember a couple of years ago that guy who whatever. It's like you don't want to be that person. It's
Well, with my second medical incident with the sepsis, how that happened is my husband had my kid walk around the house looking to find me. And he found me on the floor in our bedroom, unresponsive.
That's not
And
good.
told dad, and dad came in and tried to wake me up, but I wouldn't wake up. So
Right.
I was sleeping. And if my son went back and was like, Dad, I think you need to call 911.
Right.
And left there a whole lot longer, overnight or whatever,
Right.
I in one of the numbers.
You're right. You generally not sleeping on the floor if you find somebody on the floor like that. But there have been cases where, right. So
Also,
it's always
because usually when you fall to sepsis, you either throw up or you shit
right.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Or a seizure. That is
Yeah,
common with seizures too, with epilepsy. One of
yeah.
the best ways to find out, honestly, there are a couple things you could do. Not hard, but enough is pinch an earlobe, nose, or a sternal rub. Rub somebody's sternum, see if they react. If they don't react to that, or they react in a strange way, if they grunt or if they curl their arms inward, decorticate posturing. I talk about that, or out, and that's the only response you get. That's a 911 right away because that means their cerebral. That means their brain is swelling and their cerebrospinal fluid is kind of trapped in a way, and
Yeah.
their brain pressure is spiking. So, or if you see them that way naturally, like that, or if they're seizing, those kind of things are oh craps, and those are 911. Or if they're, as you point out, if they pooped themselves, peed themselves, and they're just laying there, kind of like oh, and
Yeah.
check their pupils. Are they fully dilated, or are they is one dilated, one is constricted? Again, that's a 911 kind of call.
Yeah. Here I got a half-mile ride up the road in an ambulance, and 4 hours later I got air flighted to San Antonio.
Yeah. So, well, did you need neurosurgical intervention for that?
I don't think neurosurgical.
Okay. They didn't need to crack your coconut open that time, huh?
Now, my coconut's never been cracked. My
Ah, good.
hard coconut. They found me next to a tree.
Yeah.
I knock it over.
Well, they'll often do a craniotomy if the pressure's too high inside your head to alleviate brain swelling, pressure from brain swelling, and they may drill burr holes and put an ICP monitor in. Did
I
you need?
don't seen that term in any of my records or hearing my parents talk about it.
Intracranial pressure monitor, you didn't have a device to measure your brain pressure for swelling? Okay. I managed to avoid that by about that much. And it's not a good thing if they have to put one of those in, because it's like it means that you're close to cerebral herniation, basically where your brain tries to squeeze itself out through one of the openings or on top of itself. Both things are bad. Transtentorial herniation through the foramen ovale. Yeah, no, these are all bad things. They usually are fatal if they happen, because as I said, the skull is kind of non-compressible, cerebrospinal fluid is non-compressible, but your brain is. Guess which one will get squeezed? Yeah,
Everything.
Your brain. It's like your skull can't squeeze and the fluid can't squeeze, but your brain can, and so that's the one that'll squeeze. And you do remarkably well considering two serious brain.
Yeah. I don't know the difference between the major bang on the head compared to bleeding of the brain, because that's what I suffered with the sepsis.
Oh, you did have some bleeding on your brain with the sepsis?
I had an ABI with sepsis, acquired brain injury, and a TBI from the car.
Trauma implies physical force is involved, that your brain got shaken up due to outside energy applied. Non-traumatic brain injury implies that it's due to something that went wrong with either, like a chemical problem, or due to an infection, or due to radiation exposure, electrical. There was no shaking involved of your brain. It didn't get shook up, because trauma versus non-trauma. I know something still went wrong with your brain, and the whole point of acquired is you were not born that way.
Yeah.
You had a normal brain, normal, growing up. And if it hadn't happened to you, you would have been just, an average person or above average or whatever else. You had a normal average life right up until that happened. And then suddenly now you've got cognitive, emotional, other disabilities, which you would not have had. And that's all forms of acquired brain injury. So acquired meaning you acquired it at some point in life. You acquired your disabilities. So they were either traumatically acquired or they were non-traumatically acquired. So disease, exposure to radiation, chemicals, whatever, or you got your head shook up. But they're all acquired brain injuries. Stroke, hemorrhage, bleeding. These were things that you were not born with. So it's whether you were born with your problem or not. That's the real divider. Were you born like that, or did it happen to you after? If it happened to you after, it's an acquired brain injury. If you were normal.
That happened to me and I rolled with it.
Right.
Because I'm saying, Debbie, that I was a little more headstrong, a little more cocky, but I've always been.
But the thing is, before you were 16, you would have, your life would have followed a normal course. You didn't have problems with memory. You didn't have problems with slowed cognition. You didn't have any of the other disabilities that you had.
Yeah.
So, it's important to differentiate between, and any of the cognitive slowing, any of the like whatever, if you did not have those before, if you were not born with an intellectual disability, the old term's MR, if you were not born with learning disabilities or with, cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy or any of that kind of stuff, but you have some symptoms that may seem similar because of a head injury or because of, like I said, electrical, radiation, chemical exposure, diseases, and things like that. That's the difference between acquired brain injury versus brain injury that is caused by genetic, or something went wrong in the womb, or while you were developing.
Yeah.
So that is really the key difference. And you can have both too. Um, you can be born, with some kind of congenital problem or a genetic disease and still get, brain injury after, acquired brain injury after. And that's something yet different. And then there are those who have genetic problems that lead to degeneration, like Alzheimer's or, frontotemporal dementia, Pick's disease, as they used to call it, or, all these other Parkinson's or whatever. And those are also not considered acquired brain injury because there's usually a genetic component that underlies them. So you were born with the potential to have it. So there's basically whether it is caused by an external or an event in your life that alters the way you are. You were not born with it, really.
In my swimming class, more in the arthritis therapy,
Mhm.
we've a wife, and he suffers Parkinson's.
Mhm. See, now his would not be considered an acquired brain injury in the classical sense. But if he or somebody else had a stroke, that is considered an acquired brain injury because it is something that happened to change somebody's brain after it had developed, or like while it was developing outside the uterus. So something like CP, if it happened due to while they're being born, or after they come out, due to like air being cut off, or while they're in the birth process, that can, under some circumstances, be considered an acquired brain injury, depending on how it happens. So if
Yeah,
the doctor screws up while you're being delivered and they choke off your oxygen supply, and now you have mobility and cognitive problems and stuff because they messed up your delivery, that is an acquired brain injury. Or if they crunched your head with forceps or whatever, that can be considered. So there is some nuance in that. So that the difference, there is a subtle dividing line there. And so that is, did it happen after you were born? If you were okay up until you were born and then something happened afterwards, then it's an acquired brain injury. That is why you are with us, because your brain injury was acquired afterward. If you had not been in the car accident, you probably would be, something else, doing something else, working, doing something different.
I
And
wouldn't have happened. Like I tell everyone, I am glad I was in the car accident.
mhm,
Yeah, I hadn't have been, but
yeah,
I'm glad things turned out because I re-met my husband. I got married to the love of my life. Our first son was born on the 9th anniversary of my car accident. I get to park in the good parking spots. College was free because of my brain injury.
right.
I use it, but I have it, which is an accomplishment for me. And
And
I,
that's
yeah,
something I was talking to. We have a video with Kate, and I was talking to her about something similar. And I also talked to Jocelyn the other day. When we made ours. And in the end, if you weigh, and I also talked to Julie about this, and in the end, it's like, since you can't undo it, you may as well look for positives. And maybe in the end, there are more positives than negatives. And I think those of us who are experienced survivors say that, okay, maybe there's more to good to embrace. Because the truth is, many of us would not have met our spouses. I never would have met my Stacy if I didn't. Because I probably would have finished my doctorate in neuropsych. I would have not probably lived in the area. I would have moved away. I may have gone for my MD instead. I don't know. Or I may have died instead.
yeah.
Who knows? Because maybe we would have done something else. Maybe we would have gotten sick. Maybe we would have done a job where in a different area, maybe gotten killed. Who knows?
Well,
Everyone wants to, like think about, who knows?
I figure my husband is also a traumatic brain injury on a lesser scale, and he still doesn't quite accept it, admit it, because he's always been that way. I mean, since childhood.
Right.
So that way, and with the single mother, he had to accept a lot of stuff, move forward. He didn't have the mental memory setbacks.
Mm. Also, when you're a kid who has it, younger kid, I mean, technically the age when you experienced it, a lot of your higher cognitive development was done, except for like a lot of the like social and like abstraction and stuff like that. So you probably would have more struggles with like the highest order thinking. And many of us with brain injury lose some of those functions anyway, the abstraction and the like, where how is this related to this, or like the symbolic representation, or like the higher order mathematics and stuff, calculus and stuff like that. But most of it,
Anyway,
huh?
I never was good at that anyway.
So, well, and part of that comes out of when you had your brain injury. But most people don't need it anyway. That's just the plain truth. And so it matters less if you struggle with that, and have problems with that kind of thinking. And many of us lose those kind of functions to begin with. Sorting, sequencing, stuff like that, and abstraction functions. So it doesn't matter quite as much to us. But when you suffer brain injury at age 9, 6, you lose a lot of other more basic functions. And so it's harder to deal with the disabilities because they're more profound, and they hit deeper in your cognition. Um, a lot of the even in concrete reasoning, you have some challenges. And so I can kind of get why he would be frustrated, because even the more typical kind of reasoning is impaired too. Plus, you add some of the more basic emotional processing, it's more seriously impaired. So you and I are beneficiaries of the fact it happened later, and we're less impaired in those kind of reasoning, in that kind of reasoning.
I look at it, I'm lucky because it did happen later. I had acquired skills, but it
Right.
happened to be flexible enough to bounce back and come up running.
And that flexibility is because it happened later.
Yeah.
You still, just like I do, probably have some trouble with cognitive flexibility. Certain things have to be certain ways, and understanding, and bending with changing situations is harder for people
Yeah.
with brain injury. And accepting that things are not as they appear, or that things may have subtle shades of meaning, is always hard for brain injury survivors. It's why they tend to be more conservative in thinking. And I don't mean like religious or political conservatism. I mean, like, new ideas, new concepts are much harder. Although it does shade over into politics, it does shade over into religion, and because different ideas are much harder. All right, Deb, I see by our clock we only have less than a minute, so I'm going to say thank you, and please click like, subscribe. Don't forget the bell icon, and we will come up with like a structured, like,
Yeah.
kind of program. Okay. So bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Deb.